You are listening to Brand Me, Alex Merced, with me, Alex Merced. On this show, we'll be talking about the ins and outs of branding and how to empower yourself by defining yourself. We'll talk about the tools, the methods, the strategies, so that way you can take a brand to achieve your goals in your personal life, your professional life, in all of your life. If you need help implementing these ideas and using these tools to achieve your goals, contact Alex Merced to be your branding coach by heading over to mercedbranding.com. Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced, and you are listening to Brand Me, Alex Merced. And you can always learn more about branding and coaching over there at mercedbranding.com. So welcome to the third episode. Basically, last week we talked about defining your goals. So basically, even before we actually design the brand, build your brand, there's preliminary work. So hopefully you spend some time kind of figuring out what your goals are. But the next step is once you kind of know what you're trying to achieve, whether it's, again, becoming a public speaker, selling a particular product, the next step is defining who is your audience. Who are you trying to communicate to? And again, more narrow, more detailed is always better, because it's much easier to think through the steps you're going to need to take later if you have a narrow defined goal and a narrow defined audience. So let's pretend that we took on the goal of wanting to become a physics public speaker. Okay, a public speaker in physics. Now the problem is physics is a very broad field, so you're going to want to narrow that down. So we might say that the goal was to be a speaker in theoretical physics. Now that helps us kind of design who that audience is going to be. So we have to think about, okay, someone who goes to see a theoretical speaker in physics, where do they go? Okay, typically you go see public speakers, let's say at a conference. So in this case, your target audience may be people who go to see theoretical physics lectures in conferences. Okay, and that's just going to help you sort of define sort of what kind of information you need to collect to reach out to people. Because we're not necessarily going to want people who just read physics books or theoretical physics books, because they may not necessarily go to lectures. They may be a secondary audience, but they may not be our primary audience. We're going to want people who are actually going to want to go pay to go see you speak, okay? And not someone who may prefer to read what you write. So you have to sit there and sort of define that and define sort of where does your audience hang out. So that's kind of what I want you guys to do over the next week. Sit down, define your audience, and then try to really define not only the people that you're trying to target, but the place that they visit. What websites do people who enjoy theoretical physics go to? What Facebook groups are they part of? What Facebook pages do they like? You do this research because this is going to inform sort of how we're going to approach a lot of the media efforts in branding your brand. So that's sort of the deal there. So again, we now know what your goal is, what the action that we hope people will take. In this case, again, in our theoretical scenario here, go see you speak publicly about theoretical physics, and then the audience, people who enjoy theoretical physics, who go to see conferences. So if this were the audience, basically what I would do is I would look up, see if there are conferences, and again, narrowing it down is even better. So basically, if you don't want to be traveling the whole country speaking, and you only want to be traveling, let's say, the state of Texas speaking, then your audience would be people in Texas who go to see physics conferences. And then that narrows it down even more. So then you would go and look to see, are there physics conferences in Texas? Because again, you don't need a huge audience to be successful in what your goal is, but you need a very clear audience who you have a very clear value proposition towards. Okay? Or else, because again, you're competing against everybody else who has their own goals, their own brand. So the more specific your brand is, the more specific your audience, the more likely you're going to connect with them. Because there's already going to be lots of people who are generic, and you're going to be competing against a lot more people the more generic you are. So you want to be specific as possible. But let's say you would go research, are there conferences in Texas? Okay, and then once you find out that there are conferences in Texas, you see who are in the Facebook events. So you would go on Facebook, take a look at the event pages made up for those events, and see, okay, is there any kind of discussion or references on these pages? Are the people who you kind of see multiple times? And then try to, from there, kind of examine like who are these people, kind of where do they hang out? Because especially for like Facebook ad marketing, that's going to really play a big role to kind of define those things. Also define the terms you're going to want to target for Google ads later on, etc. And making sure that once we design your brand message, that we're broadcasting it to the right people. Okay, so that's sort of your mission for this week. So last week I had you guys define your goal. This week I want you guys to define your audience. So go out there and do that. I will see you guys next week. You're listening to Brand Me, Alex Merced. Again, all I'm asking you guys is a few minutes a week to listen to me, to give you practical, actionable advice to better define yourself so you can empower yourself. If you guys enjoy the show, please leave a review over there on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, etc. Share it with your friends. If you know other friends who may enjoy this information about branding, tell them to subscribe to the show. Again, only a few minutes a week to help you empower yourself by defining yourself. This is branding coach Alex Merced signing out. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you for listening to Brand Me, Alex Merced on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to like Alex Merced on Facebook, on Twitter, and head over to mercedbranding.com to find us on social media and find other useful advice and resources in marketing and achieving your goals.